FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
Justice Breyer, the war on terror, the war on Iraq is spilled over not only around the globe in questions like Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo, but also we felt it here with questions about wiretapping and other things. Back in 2003, you spoke extensively, pretty openly, about civil liberties and how the U.S. should think about balancing the issues of civil liberties at a time of war. You've written a book as a sitting justice about active liberty and what role the court should play. Will you talk a little bit about what you see as the Supreme Court's role over the next several years in making sure that liberty is properly protected and some of the challenges to it?
Well, there are a couple of things about the Constitution. What you talk about is mostly for us, the courts. And of course, there is a security problem. And we have a civil liberties tradition. And so what I've said is, well, what can you describe about the approach that I think the court has taken and will take? It's fairly general, what I say, but it's true and important. I think the first thing is that the Constitution does apply in time of war. That wasn't always true. Cicero said something which I learned. It wasn't at Stanford. I don't think they taught Latin at Stanford. They did. I had a great... But in high school, I think it was something like arma dicet leges silant. I'm not sure that was right. And I translated that as saying, when the cannons roar, the laws fall silent. And then someone said, you idiot, the Romans didn't have cannons. But you see the point. And that was Cicero. Well, that isn't true. That isn't true, and it hasn't been true for some time. The Constitution and its protections apply in wartime as they do in peacetime. The second thing to keep in mind is that in most relevant respects, the constitutional provisions that safeguard human liberty have a degree of flexibility built in. For example, there's a protection against an unreasonable search and seizure. An unreasonable search and seizure. So if in peacetime a policeman sees someone grab a woman off the street and run into an apartment house, that policeman doesn't stop and get a warrant. There's an immediate need. Of course you go in. And normally there isn't that need, you get a warrant. Well, in wartime or even in time of terrorism, similar kinds of events may provoke similar need for similar responses. There's always a balancing at issue there. The third point, and this becomes harder, is, well, how do we get the right balance? Very hard. But I hate to say it, we're helped in this by lawyers. I don't hate to say it a lot. I don't hate to say it. Lawyers help us all the time. And here they have any lawyer who's defending somebody has two questions that in some form or other they'll ask the government. Say, who's detaining a person? Say, without a lawyer. Say, on the ground he's dangerous. And the first question is a good question. Journalists use it too, Tom. Why? Why aren't you giving this person a lawyer? What is the problem? And there are many ways of requiring the government to respond. Maybe the response has to be secret. Why does it have to be secret? Does it still have to be secret? Can we have it in camera? Can we have a special group of judges? I mean, there are many ways to skin that cat, but you need an answer to the question why. And the second question is, if the why is satisfied, why not? And why not means, well, why not do it in a less restrictive way? You say to me, this man is so dangerous, he can't see a lawyer. Well, what about him seeing a lawyer who has security clearance? So dangerous, we can't let anyone near him. Are you sure? Have you convinced me why even in... We have that problem in Israel. Here's what they do. And sometimes the government's right, by the way. I hate to tell you, that's been known. And they say, well, this person is incredibly dangerous. They convince it. So we have to hold him without a lawyer. Oh, for how long? Oh, we're not sure. Come back this afternoon. Do you still need him without a lawyer? Try tomorrow. The next day. The day after that. In other words, if you're going to hold him for a week, it sounds less and less probable. A month? What? Really? You see? And there are many ways of skinning this cat to get the answer to the questions why and why not. And I pause on that because I want you to see and imagine, since I can't say it, the complexity that goes into answering those questions and the importance, on the one hand, of the courts recognizing the government's knowledge in this area, but not giving too much weight to it when civil liberties are at stake, and indeed what is too much. All right, now do you understand the kinds of questions that come up? And the only fourth thing that I think is important in our minds is recognize the court's own mistake. Own mistakes.
And do you see
mistakes? When I was, 6 years old, I could remember only 20 miles from here, being driven. I couldn't drive at that time. My mother taking me in the car by Tan Fran racetrack. And she said that's the place where they held the Japanese. And she didn't say it in a friendly way. She didn't think it was a good idea to hold the Japanese. And my goodness, she was right. It was 100,000 American citizens. And they were held for all in the war. Go look at that film about World War II right now, and you'll see some of those stories. And it was the J. Edgar Hoover who said, "I have no evidence that any one of them has committed any sabotage." And it was Earl Warren who said, "The very fact we don't have that evidence means they must be up to it." Well, I'm sorry. Earl Warren, who is a great civil libertarian and a great American, and a hero of our country, said that was a blot on his own record. And later years, he was very sorry about that. And he thought that that showed that, which is true of all human beings, we can get carried away. We can be caught up in the righteousness of our cause. And in a sense there, the courts are a kind of brake. You see, I can't give you answers to the questions, but I can say the question's difficult. And I can give you a kind of outline or approach that I believe we'll use. So far, I've said this sometimes, we've had 3 cases. We have another one on our docket involving Guantanamo. And I like to say this sometimes to foreign audiences, though it just happened to work out that way. The last case pitted the most unpopular person in America, almost, the driver of bin Laden. He sued, and on the other side was the President of the United States, the most powerful man in the world, perhaps on certainly anyone's list of 10. And bin Laden's driver won. All right? That's the constitutional system. He won because he was right. And that's the system that's important, to keep and hard to keep and so forth. You know that 4th of July speech. But all I can tell you is that 4th of July speech is absolutely real. And we're all, not just the courts, in the middle of this.